Hey, good morning, guys. Rick here with Euroboutique again. We got a cool car here today for you guys, and we're going to be documenting the installation since a lot of you guys have come to us and asked us, how do you install a nose beak, or how do you remove the bumper, or how do you just get this nose beak off? So we're going to be documenting the work on this 2017 NSX here. And as you guys know, we do sell a lot of carbon fiber parts for it, and one of them is a nose beak. So we're going to show you how to remove the factory nose beak and replace it with the carbon fiber one. So coming over here on the workbench, you can kind of see here's the carbon nose beak, and it's an exact piece to replace the aluminum one that's on the car right now. So looking at it, it looks pretty easy to install, right? So if you're looking at it, there's a couple of release clips here at the top of the unit. There's 1 and 2, 3 and 4. However, what you can't see is, I'm going to show you on this particular one is, when you flip this around, there's actually a total of 8 screws hidden behind that hold the bumper in place. You see these right here? So there's 8 of them total, all around. And getting these screws out is nearly impossible without taking the bumper off. So we're going to show you how to do it the correct way with the bumper being taken off. I know there's some methods where you can do it. Some people have tried to do it without taking the bumper off, but in this car, you can see it's got the SOS eye lift system. So with the eye lift in the way, there's simply no way to get your hands back here. It's tucked underneath here, okay? So the proper way to do it is to take the bumper off, and I'm gonna show you how. All right, so today we're gonna be documenting the installation on the nose beak. And then while we got the bumper off, we're gonna put the SOS horn system, which is this thing right here. It's supposed to be a plug and play setup, so we're gonna install that. And then down here, these are the extended carbon fiber paddles, which are for the steering wheel. These are direct replacements as well. So they replaced the factory paddles, which if you come in here and take a look, the factory paddles are the aluminum little ones right here. So we're going to replace them with these carbon fiber ones, which look like this. These are 100% OEM, so they're going to be replaced plug and play with the factory screws. And they're finished in the same matte carbon finish as the factory pieces. Okay, to remove this bumper, there's quite a few steps, so quite a few screws to remove. So let's get started over here on the side. So what we do is we turn the wheels inside, and then there's going to be a total of 3 plastic clips inside the fenders on each side you want to remove. So the first one is right up here at the top, the second one is right there, and the third one's here at the bottom. You see right there. The trick to removing these is pretty easy. Get a trim removal tool such as this. Work your way underneath the screw, pop it off. Once you release it, and then you can just pull out the clips, and the clips look like this. So you got 3 on each side, so total of 6 of these clips, okay? So 6 clips, 3 on each side of the fender. Once we remove those, then we're gonna go underneath the bumper. And then we're gonna take a look down just under the bumper. There's gonna be a total of 24 of these. You see these right here? These are all T30 bolts. You're gonna remove all 24 of them, all the way across the bottom of the bumper, okay? So when all 24 of those bolts are removed, then that takes care of the bottom of the bumper, all right? And then the last thing is we're gonna pull the fender liner back. So right back to where we were over here. We're gonna pull this fender liner back carefully, all right? So when this piece comes off, there is 3 more T30 bolts behind here, which I'll show you in a minute once I get this thing off. So once you get this thing, kind of work your way out, and then you can see there's T30 bolts in here. There's one right there. So there's 3 on each side, all right? So these 3 T30 bolts are behind the fender liner. Remove those, and then have 2 people, and then we're gonna pull the bumper off this way, all right? So let's get the other side done. All right, so on this side, what we did was we pulled the fender liner back. So we removed the 3 clips we showed you earlier, right? So we're gonna pull these clips out. So once the clips are out, you pull the fender liner back, and there's gonna be 3 T30 bits. There's gonna be 1 right here, 1 right here, and a 1 here at the bottom. So we're gonna remove these 3, and that'll release the back of the bumper on each side. These are pretty long screws, if you look at it. So it does help to have a power driver like this, because if you use a manual one, it's gonna take you quite a bit longer. So, all right, there's that one, and then last one right there. So now we're going to go under the bumper, and now that we removed all the clips, I'm just gonna show you what they look like. So there's one right there, all right? There's one here in the middle, and then one here at the bottom, all right? So all T30 bits. After you make the plastic clips, we're gonna pull the bumper away, but we gotta go underneath the bumper now, and we gotta remove all these T30 bits on the bottom. There's 24 of them down here, so let me get to it. All right, so here's all the bolts we removed from the bumper. These are the bolts from under the bumper. These are all your bolts behind the fender. The last thing to remove are the easiest 4 bolts. So this is what most people start with. You got 4 bolts up here. So there's one more here in the corner. So these 4 have to be removed, and then pretty much your bumper is ready to be separated from the vehicle. So let's get those removed. Okay, so here we're looking at the bumper has been pretty much separated from the vehicle. What I wanted to show you was the clips. So this is the screw that was underneath. Remember that was holding the screw with one of the T30. So you got 3 clips here, which are secured in here. And then you got clips along the inside of the headlight and clips there. Just make sure you do remember when you do this to unplug the windshield wiper. I believe these are the, or actually not the windshield wiper, these are the parking distance controllers. So you got one right here. Make sure you unplug these. See this one? Goes right in there, so unplug it. Same with the other side, there's one right here. You want to unplug these. The way you unplug is pretty easy. You press down on the little clip right here. When you press down, it releases and it just pops out. So make sure you take those 2 clips off, disconnect both sides. The 4 bolts on the top are disconnected now. You can see the bumper has been pretty much separated from the vehicle. So we're going to take it off the car now, and then we can get to work on the nose beak. All right. So you can see how the bumper has been all separated from the vehicle, ready to go. All right, so the main purpose of taking this whole bumper off was to get to the nose beak, right? So we're gonna get the screws off. And if you remember earlier in the video, I said there was 8 screws total. Now the top screws, are relatively easy to find, but the ones that are hard to access, I'm gonna show you right now. So you got one down here, so that's 1. See, that's one that's hard to get to. And then you got 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, which is hidden underneath here. That's a 6. But you're like, where's the last 2? The last 2 screws are actually at the bottom down here. So these 2, I don't see how you would remove them without taking the bumper off. But there's one here, and there's one over here. So this is underneath the plastic. So you got the plastic underneath here. You got 2 screws. If you can reach down here, there's one there and there's one there. So a total of 8 screws. So we're gonna remove these screws now, and then you can see how the nose beak comes off. All right, so we're gonna come in here and remove all these Phillips screws. Be very gentle with them. You got 1. 2. Bottom 2. These are the 2 that are kind of hidden from view, so make it easy when it's off the car like this. 2. I go back up to the top, remove the remaining one. So when this is all done, double check you have 8 screws. Everything's been removed. Make sure you didn't forget one. And when this is all removed, now we can go ahead and press down the clips, and we're gonna slide the nose beak off from the other side, and then we should be ready to roll. Okay, we removed all the screws on the back side, released the clips, so now pretty much we just gotta pull this thing out. So the whole piece is just held in place by 4 clips. So when the clips are removed, we're gonna slide this baby out. You can see the stock piece. It's already starting to discolor a little bit on the underside, but so we're gonna set this thing aside. This is a factory nose beak, so we're gonna put it somewhere safe. All right. Then we're gonna come back down here, and now we got the carbon one. So this car is a Novala blue, so it looks really nice with the carbon piece. We're gonna slide this back on here. Make sure all the tabs line up. Okay. So at this point, fits right up there. I mean, you can see with one hand, I just slide it right in. So it's 100% perfect fitment. All right. We're gonna slide this into place, lock it in, and then we will put the bolts in, and then we'll be ready to put the bumper back on. All right, so installing this thing is on the back side. I mean, when the bumper's off, it's easy, right? So we're gonna carefully snap it back into place. You hear it snap, all right? So once it's all snapped back in place, there we go, make sure it's all tucked in. And then we just carefully put the screws back on, and that'll hold it back in place. So we'll slide the bumper up a little bit. These are those 8 screws you removed earlier. So carefully put these screws back in. What I recommend is don't put the screws in too tight. Start with one side, put the screws in, and then put the other screws in on the right side. Make sure everything's lined up before you tighten everything down. Now I take a manual screwdriver instead of a power one and just kind of tighten everything down. Take a look at it from the other side. All the screws have been installed. And there's a nose beak. Beautiful. All right, so normally you just put the bumper back on at this point, but since we got the bumper off, the customers asked us to install the SOS horn kit. So we're gonna go ahead and tackle that as well, all right? All right, so we're looking at the horn right now. This part is not too bad, but make sure you do a couple things. Before we move the bolts, the instructions say you gotta measure the distance of this hood latch, because we wanna know what the position is. It's actually adjustable. So we measured it at 7 millimeters. So we noted it on the instruction manual here. And later when we put the latch back in, we wanna make sure that's 7 millimeter height from the bottom of this to the top of this latch, okay? So we measured that to be 7 millimeters. There's a total of 3 10 millimeter screws that we're gonna have to take off. So we're gonna take these off. One of the things to note is this particular car that we're working on has the iLift system installed already. So it's a little bit more work to install it. If you didn't have the iLift, you can drop the horn in right over here and just slide it in here. But right now, from what I was told was, okay, so let's get the horn out first. So the horn comes out, we're gonna unplug the harness. Same thing as before. You just press the little clip here, like I did, press right here, and it slides out. So we're gonna disconnect the horn. We're gonna disconnect this nut on the horn right here, and then this horn will be separated from the vehicle. So once we get this horn out, we gotta replace it with the new horn, which is sitting right above me. The tricky part though, to get this thing in here is pretty big. Normally you would just drop it in from the other side, but in this case we can't do that because the iLift compressor is in the way. So we're gonna have to disconnect this setup. But essentially when this is disconnected, this thing is gonna come down and in there. But once this slides in, and then we bolt it back up, and then we're gonna run the harness, tap it into the connections there, and we should be set to go, all right? So let's get this thing back in. Okay, so we got the new horn assembly in. So it's all bolted in, 3 10 millimeter bolts holds it in. We ran the cable for the plug to the factory horn. We routed the harness underneath here, so get it out of the way. It's a little bit easier when the bumper's off, of course. So we ran it underneath over here, and then this will be zip tied over here. This thing feeds over to the power side of the battery. We attached the ground in here. Let's see if I can get in here. How do I show this? There we go. So the ground wire is right there. So we attached it. We fed the wire in from the front over there, fed it underneath, and then grounded at the factory ground point there. So that's a ground. And then we ran the wiring underneath here. Goes underneath and up to the battery. So this goes up to the battery. We remove the battery cover. And then if we're looking at the horn, now everything's installed. Factory bolts. We're gonna align this to the top here with that measurement we made earlier. So it's gotta be a 7 millimeter distance. That's what we measured earlier for the hood latch. Once that's installed, everything's back in the car, so then we can put the bumper back on. All right, so everything's back up. We tidied everything. The compressor's back on, the horn is installed, everything's plugged in. So we're gonna put the bumper back on. This is the part that we took off earlier. So it helps to have 2 people, but I'll show you that it can be done with 1 person as well. So we're just gonna lift this thing up here. And then we'll hold it. Now don't forget to make that one plug. If you don't plug this thing in, it'll be very hard to plug in later. So this is the one that I showed you earlier on the inside. So we're gonna tuck in here. And what I was doing on the bottom here, I was just making sure the bumper, there is a flap, so you want to make sure the bumper goes under the flap all the way around. Okay, so when you're doing this, make sure you slide underneath and make sure the factory flaps above. So here's your flap, the bumper is going to slide underneath it, okay, like this, all the way around. So we're just making sure it's all slid underneath, which it has, it's all perfectly lined up. We lined up the front, make sure it's centered. And then we're about 90% of the way there. At this point, we're just going to clip the bumper back on. So I'm going to carefully attach it at each point. Line it up. There you go. It should all snap in perfectly. If you lined it up correctly, so you can see it's all lined perfectly. Nose beak is still good. We're going to come over here on this side. Do the same thing. Make sure it's lined up. The bottom is tucked in. And then we're going to push it in. There we go. On in. Perfect. Before you put any screws in, the bumper should be perfect. So check the headlight gaps, check your gaps on the side. Everything should be all straight. There's no gaps here, no gaps, all good. And the 4 holes for the bolts should line up in the middle. If they all line up good, then pretty much you're set. All we gotta do is put the bolts underneath back on. And then we gotta put the bolts in behind the fender liner. And then we're gonna put those 4 10mm bolts back in, and then that completes the installation. So here, you know, the bumper is pretty much all back on the car. Everything's been tightened, bolted back in. So the car is all done now. I just want to show you how the harness was. Here's where the horn upgrade went. It was pretty easy to put this thing in once we got the what do you call it? We got the compressor out. That's the SOS eyelet. You can hear the compressor going. The wiring, we ran it all over, so it's all completed. The fuse is over here. Here's your fuse. We ran the power, ground, everything's been tied up. So all we gotta do is put the battery cover back on and we're pretty much set to go. And just to see it in action, you can see the car. I'm gonna hold in this thing. You can see it lift up. And then back down. So with the horn upgraded, everything's already installed in here. It's definitely gonna be louder than stock, but let's fire it up and see what it sounds like. See if we did it. Okay guys, so that completes the installation for this 2017 NSX. Today we did a nose beak, we did the SOS horn, and pretty much the car is all put back together, ready for the owner. If you have any questions or you want to see something else, let us know, and then I will try to put it on YouTube for you. Again, thanks for watching. If it's really helped you, please subscribe. That helps us. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.